My name is Malcolm Davis. I'm 65 years old, and for months my own children tried to kill me with carbon monoxide to take the house I built with my own hands along with Rosa, my wife, 40 years ago. When my grandson Eli discovered the tampered valves and the sealed vents, we had to run out in the middle of the night, and what came after was worse. Before I begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching my story from, so I can see how far it reached. I get up every day at 6 in the morning, not because I have to rush to work anymore, but because my body won't let me sleep any longer. My knees crack when I get out of bed, my back pulls from the left side, and the fingers on my right hand wake up stiff. Nothing serious, I tell myself. Just old man things. I put on the robe Rosa gave me years ago. That blue one with white stripes that's already faded, but that I won't throw away as long as it's got one more thread holding it together. The house smells like old wood and the years we've spent here. 40 years, to be exact. I raised these walls myself, laid every brick, cut every beam, sanded every door. Rosa picked the colors, the handles, the tiles in the kitchen. She used to say a home doesn't build itself, that it comes together like a puzzle between two people. And she was right. This house is my work, my pride. The doors are pine, carved by me on nights after work. The shelves in the living room are cedar, coated with the varnish Rosa chose, because she said it looked like honey. The kitchen's got yellow and blue tiles we bought at a Sunday market, the day we took a little trip down to Baton Rouge. Every corner of this house has a story. Rosa died 3 years ago. Cancer. Quick and without warning. One day she was fine, the next she wasn't. The doctor said there was nothing to do, that it was too advanced. I was left with the house, the memories, and a pain that doesn't go away. Just settles somewhere quiet in your chest and stays there. The first months after she left were the hardest. I'd get up and for a second forget she was gone. I'd make coffee for two, set 2 plates. Then I'd remember and have to put one away. My children, Richard and Julia, came to the funeral, said the things people say, that they were sorry, that they were there for me, that whatever I needed I could call. But afterward, everyone went their own way. Richard lives over in Jackson, got a sales job that never seems to pay enough. He's always short. Julia's in Gulfport, married to a man who works for an insurance company. They've got a daughter, Pauline, who just turned 14. That girl I do love seeing more often, but Julia's always busy. Richard was always the restless one. As a kid, he never liked carpentry. Said that was for people without an education, that he was going to be somebody important. Rosa told him there was nothing wrong with working with your hands, but he never listened. He finished high school, started a business degree he never finished, and since then he's been jumping from one job to another. Now he sells home security systems, or so he says. He's been married to Carla for about 10 years. She's a real estate agent, the kind that always has her phone in her hand and talks in fancy words. The first time I met her, I didn't like her. She's got that smile that never reaches her eyes. Rosa told me not to be prejudiced, to give her a chance. I gave her a chance. Still didn't like her. Julia's different. Quieter, more measured. She was always the obedient one, the good student, the one who helped around the house. She married young, to a man named Melvin she met at church. They've got Pauline and live a quiet life, or so it seemed. Julia works part-time at a stationery store, Melvin at the insurance office. They're not rich, but they're not struggling either. Or so I thought. The only one who comes by often is Eli, Richard's son. He's 26 and works as a gas technician. Good kid. The kind who doesn't talk too much, just does what needs to be done. He comes by every couple of weeks to check everything's okay, that the water heater's running right, no leaks. He says it's part of his job, but I know he also comes because he loves this house, because his grandma used to spoil him here with cornbread and stories while I worked out in the shed. Eli's quiet like his grandpa, nothing like Richard. Sometimes I wonder if that's why Richard looks at him with resentment, because the boy turned out more like me than like him. About 2 months ago, I started feeling strange. Nothing that put me in bed, but things I didn't like. Headaches that hit in the afternoons after being indoors all day. Nausea that came out of nowhere. A heavy tiredness that no nap could fix. At first I thought it was age, that my body just couldn't handle what it used to. But then I started writing the symptoms down in a little notebook because Rosa always said doctors need dates and details, not just I don't feel good. The notebook's green, the kind they sell at the corner store. I jot everything down. Monday, headache at 5 p.m. strong. Tuesday, nausea after lunch, threw up at night. Wednesday, tired all day, couldn't even step outside. And so on. I thought about going to the doctor, but I kept putting it off. Doctors are expensive, and even though I've got my pension, I don't like spending more than I need to. There was also the carbon monoxide detector, that little white gadget Eli installed about a year ago, stuck on the wall in the living room. Every month, he tests it with a button to make sure the alarm works. But lately, every time he tested it, the detector went off. Not the test beep, but the real alarm. Eli said it was weird, that he'd bring another one to check, but I didn't pay it much mind. I figured it was old, faulty. Never thought it might actually be detecting something real. It was a Tuesday when everything came to light. Eli showed up early, around 9 a.m. with his toolbox and a serious look. He said he came to check some cracks he'd seen the week before in the bathroom wall, and also a vent that someone had sealed for efficiency. I didn't know what he meant. Nobody had sealed anything, as far as I knew. He went into the laundry room, where the water heater is. I stayed in the kitchen making coffee, hearing him move things, open and close valves. 10 minutes later, he came out. His face looked different, not angry, but tense. He asked me to sit down. "Grandpa," he said, "somebody's been tampering with the heater. And this wasn't maintenance, it's the opposite." I didn't understand. I asked what he meant. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, that same wooden table I built when Richard was still a boy. He explained slowly, in words I could follow, that he'd found a vent valve shut tight when it should have been open, that the ventilation duct meant to carry gases outside was sealed up with fresh caulk, still shiny, that someone had been there recently, and it wasn't a professional job. It was the work of someone who knew just enough to do harm. I stayed quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't know what to think. Eli pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. There were the valves, the ducts, the sealant, all with date and time. He explained that the gas wasn't burning properly, that the fumes were staying trapped, that carbon monoxide was building up in the house. That's why the headaches, the nausea, why the detector went off every time he tested it. "Grandpa," he said, "you've been getting poisoned. Slowly. If this kept up, in a couple of weeks your body would have collapsed. And since you live alone, nobody would have found you in time." I asked if he was sure. He said yes. He does this every day. Knows gas systems like the back of his hand. And this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. He showed me a timer, some little gadget taped to the heater pipe. He explained someone had set it to make the heater run more often than usual, releasing more gas. All calculated. I didn't want to believe him. I couldn't. Who would want to hurt me? I live alone. Don't mess with anybody. Got no enemies. I don't keep money under the mattress. I don't own jewelry. All I've got is this house. Then I saw Eli's face, and I understood where he was going. "Who's been here?" I asked. Eli pressed his lips together, pulled a note from his backpack, a note I'd left on the fridge 2 weeks earlier. It said, "Richard came to check the heater, said it was making noise." I didn't even remember writing that. Richard had come by on a Saturday, told me he'd checked the heater since Carla, his wife, the real estate agent, had mentioned old houses often have gas problems. I let him do it. He's my son. Why would I doubt him? He spent about half an hour in the laundry room. Came out sweaty, said it was all good. Drank a glass of water and left. I didn't check a thing. Why would I? Eli told me I had to leave the house. Right now. Grab a change of clothes and go. It wasn't safe to stay. I told him he was overreacting, that I wasn't leaving my house over a suspicion. But he grabbed my arm, firm but gentle, and said, "Grandpa, if these readings keep up, in 2 weeks you won't wake up, and they'll say it was natural causes." Old man fell asleep and didn't wake up. That's when I went cold. I didn't say another word. I grabbed my sweater, packed 2 sets of clothes in a canvas bag, the notebook with the symptoms, and my wallet. Eli shut off the gas valve, opened all the windows, and we left. We didn't tell anybody. Not Richard, not Julia, not Carla. We got in his truck and drove. Half an hour down Highway 61 toward Natchez. Eli didn't talk much. Neither did I. I was trying to understand what was happening. My son, my own son Richard, the same boy who used to help me sand doors, who fell asleep in the workshop while I worked. That same one. Had he really wanted to kill me? I couldn't get the thought through my head. It was like forcing the wrong key into a lock. We reached a small roadside motel, one of those with doors facing the parking lot. Eli paid for one night. We went inside. It smelled of bleach and damp, but it was clean. 2 beds, an old TV, a small bathroom. I sat on the bed. Eli sat across from me on the other. "Grandpa," he said, "I need you to listen carefully." He took out his phone again and showed me the photos, slower this time, explaining each thing. The closed valve that trapped the gas. The duct sealed with fresh silicone, still shiny at the edges. A homemade timer taped to the heater pipe, the kind used to switch lights on and off at certain hours. He explained that someone had set the heater to turn on more often, to release more gas. All planned so I'd breathe carbon monoxide little by little until one day I just didn't wake up. I asked if it could have been someone else, a worker, someone who got in without me knowing. Eli shook his head. "The lock wasn't forced," he said, "and the note on the fridge is clear. Richard was here, and Richard's the only one with keys besides you and Julia." Then I remembered something. About a month ago, Julia came to visit, brought food. We spent the afternoon talking. Before she left, she asked for my phone to look up a recipe she wanted to copy. I handed it over without thinking. She spent about 10 minutes with it. When she gave it back, she said she couldn't find the recipe, and that was that. Now, sitting in that motel room, I wondered if she'd been checking something else. My messages, my contacts, my calls. Was she working with Richard? Eli said there was more, that he'd been looking into things on his own, quietly, so he wouldn't scare me if it turned out to be nothing. But it wasn't nothing. He told me that 2 months ago, Richard had called him asking how much the house was worth. If Eli knew anyone who bought handcrafted houses with large lots. Eli asked why, and Richard said it was just curiosity, that Carla wanted to know for some real estate calculations. But Eli didn't believe him. He dug a little, asked around. Turned out Richard's deep in debt. Credit cards maxed out. A car loan for a vehicle he doesn't even have anymore. The bank took it. And money owed to a quick loan guy. The kind that doesn't forgive and charges interest that'll drown you. Carla's tight too. She's got to pay commissions to her agency. And if she doesn't sell, she doesn't earn. They've been in the red for a while. Eli found out through a cousin who works at a bank. Didn't give details, but enough to know things were bad. And then there's Julia. Eli said her husband, the one from the insurance company, has a sick mother, heavy medical bills, expensive medicine, weekly visits. Julia's always been the one trying to please everybody, stressing out if she can't help. Eli thinks she joined the plan not because she's evil, but because she's desperate, needs the money, and can't see another way out. I couldn't believe it. Didn't want to. But the pieces started fitting together like a puzzle. The house is worth a lot. Big place, large lot, in an area getting expensive. 2 years ago, a neighbor sold his for nearly $200,000. Mine's bigger. If I died, the house would go to Richard and Julia. They'd sell it, pay off their debts, and live happily ever after. Except me, of course, because I'd be dead. Eli put his hand on my shoulder. "Grandpa," he said, "I know it's hard, but we have to move fast. If they realize you're gone, they'll start looking, and they'll make up a story. That you're confused, senile, imagining things. We've got to get ahead of them." I asked what he wanted to do. He said first we needed stronger evidence. The photos helped, but we needed more. The notebook with my symptoms. Witnesses, someone who'd seen Richard or Julia around the house. And we had to go to the police, file a report before they could twist the story. Then my phone rang. It was Richard. Eli told me not to answer. I let it ring until it stopped. 2 minutes later it rang again, Richard. Then Julia. Then Richard again. 5 calls in 10 minutes. Eli took my phone and turned it off. "Don't answer, Grandpa," he said. "First we make a plan." We stayed at the motel that night. I barely slept. Spent the whole night staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how things had come to this. I thought of Rosa, of what she'd say. How it'd break her heart to know her children, the ones she raised, fed, taught, had planned this. Or maybe she wouldn't be surprised. Rosa was always better than me at reading people. She saw things I didn't. When Richard married Carla, Rosa told me one night in bed, "That woman's eyes are set somewhere else." I didn't listen then. Now I do. The next morning Eli went out early to get breakfast. Brought back barbecue sandwiches and coffee from the corner store. We ate without talking much. The coffee was weak but hot. The sandwiches were good. Then he said we had to move. We needed to talk to the neighbors, Miss Louise, who lives next door. She's always watching out, always knows who comes and goes. One of those ladies who spend the day by the window, but not in a nosy way, just looking out for the neighborhood. We drove there, but not straight to my house. Parked 2 blocks away. Eli walked over while I waited. He said it was better if I didn't show up. That Miss Louise might alert someone without meaning to. He came back about 20 minutes later with a look that said he'd found something big. "Miss Louise saw Richard's truck 2 nights ago," he said. "Around 11 at night. Parked across the street, not in front of your house. Stayed there about half an hour. Then left." Miss Louise thought it was strange, but she didn't pay it much mind. Until now. When Eli told her we were looking into something, she got serious and told him everything she'd seen. That was good. It was evidence. Eli had asked Miss Louise to write it down on a piece of paper with the date and time. She did. He also asked if she'd seen Julia. Miss Louise said she wasn't sure, but about 3 weeks ago she'd seen a woman who could have been her. Same hair, same way of walking. She went into the house with a key, stayed about an hour, and left. She didn't bring anything in or take anything out. Just went in and out. Eli told me we needed the little notebook, that it was at my house, in the kitchen drawer where I keep important things. That without that notebook, doctors wouldn't be able to line up my symptoms with carbon monoxide poisoning. I told him we could go back together, quick, in and out. But he said no, that it was dangerous. If Richard or Julia were watching, they'd see us. Better for him to go alone, fast, slip in and out without a sound. I didn't like the idea, but he was right. Eli grabbed my house keys, the ones I had in my pants pocket, and left. I stayed in the truck, parked 2 blocks from my own house, waiting. 10 minutes passed. 15. 20. I started getting nervous. My hands sweat when I get nervous. I kept thinking, what if they were there? What if they did something to Eli? What if they'd already changed the lock? At 25 minutes I saw him coming back, walking fast but not running. He had the green notebook in his hand. He got in the truck, and we drove off without saying a word until we turned the corner. "I found it," he said. "But I found something else too. Somebody's been there. They moved things. The laundry room door was open, and I'd locked it before we left. They checked the heater, Grandpa. They took off the timer. They pulled the sealant off the vent, cleaned everything. I think they already know that we know." That froze my blood. If they already knew, what were they going to do? Come looking for me? Make up something about me being crazy, that I imagined it all? Eli told me we had to go to the district attorney's office that same day. We couldn't wait. The quicker we filed a report, the better. I told him I wasn't sure. They were my children. Maybe there was another way. Talk to them. Ask them why. Eli looked at me with that face a grandson shouldn't have to wear at his age. He put a hand on my shoulder and talked to me like I was the child, and he was the old man. "Grandpa," he said, "you're my blood. They tried to kill you. There's nothing to talk about. If we talk, they'll deny everything. They'll say you're confused, that you forget things. They'll flip the story and make you look crazy. We have to move fast, with papers, with proof, with everything legal. It's the only way." And he was right. There was nothing to talk about. As much as it hurt, there was nothing to talk about. We went to the DA's office downtown in Jackson that same afternoon. A gray building that seems designed to make people feel small. Packed with folks waiting, desks piled high with papers, smelling like old coffee and built-up frustration. We were seen by an investigator named Detective Harris, a thin man with a trimmed mustache and the look of someone who's seen it all and nothing surprises him. Eli explained everything. Showed him the photos, the notebook with my symptoms, Miss Louise's written statement. Harris took notes on an old computer that made a noise every time he typed. In the end, he asked me directly, no beating around the bush. Mr. Davis, do you believe your children wanted to kill you? I kept quiet for a moment. It was the first time someone put it to me like that. So direct, so plain. I took a deep breath and said, I think so. I don't want to believe it, but I think so. Harris nodded. Didn't say anything else about that. Just kept typing. He asked how old the house was, who had keys, if there were cameras, if I had a will. I answered everything. He asked me to walk him through my routine, what times I was home, when the symptoms started. I took out the notebook and handed it over. He went page by page, taking pictures of each sheet with his phone. He told me he was going to file the formal complaint, that they needed to do a forensic inspection at the house, send specialized techs to check the heater, the vents, everything, that they were going to call Richard and Julia in for questioning, that the process could take weeks, maybe months, but with the evidence we had there was enough for a serious investigation. He asked if I wanted a restraining order. I said I didn't know what that was. He explained it was a paper that forbade Richard and Julia from coming near me. I said I'd think about it. I asked what would happen to me in the meantime. He said I couldn't go back home until they finished the inspection. It was the scene of a possible crime. He recommended I stay with someone I trusted, and that I not speak to Richard or Julia until the DA's office took their statements. Eli said I'd stay with him at his apartment. Harris took down the address and told us he'd be calling in the next few days. We left the DA's office when it was already getting dark. The sky was orange, the dirty kind of orange you get with city pollution. I felt tired, hollow. I hadn't cried. I hadn't yelled. Nothing. I just felt a weight on my chest, like someone had set a sack of cement on me, and I had to carry it forever. Eli took me to his place. It's small, one bedroom, living dining room and kitchen together, in a 3-story building on the south side of town. But it's clean and tidy. He told me I'd sleep in his bed, and he'd take the couch. I told him no, I was fine on the couch. We argued a little, but he won. I lay down in his bed, smelling like clean laundry and a young man's cologne. That night I did cry. Quietly. So Eli wouldn't hear me from the living room. I wasn't crying out of fear or anger. I cried because it hurt. It hurt to know the house I built with Rosa, the house where we raised our children, had become a trap. It hurt to know my children saw me as a burden, something to move out of the way to get paid. It hurt to think of Rosa, that she wasn't here to see this, and it also hurt to think maybe it was better that way, that she didn't have to go through it. The next day, Eli left early for work. He made coffee and left sweet rolls. Told me not to go out, not to open the door for anyone, not to answer the phone. I stayed alone in the apartment, looking out the window, trying to understand how my life had turned like this so fast. At 11 in the morning my phone rang. It was Richard. I didn't answer. It rang again. Julia. I didn't answer. Then a text from Richard. Dad, where are you? We're worried. Call me. Another from Julia. Daddy, please answer. We need to know you're okay. And then one from Carla. Mr. Davis, Richard is very distressed. Please get in touch. I didn't answer any of them. I left the phone on the table and poured more coffee. Eli came back around 7 that evening. He brought Chinese takeout for both of us. We ate in silence, watching the news on TV. Then he told me Harris had called. Tomorrow they were going to do the forensic inspection at the house. They needed me there to open the door and point out where everything was. He asked if I felt ready. I said yes, though I wasn't sure. But I also knew I wasn't going to stay quiet. Rosa wouldn't have stayed quiet, and neither would I. The day of the inspection dawned cloudy. One of those gray days that look like rain, but just hang there, heavy, undecided. Eli and I left early. He drove in silence. I kept thinking I was going to see my house again, but no longer as my house, as evidence of a crime. That felt strange, like seeing your own life from the outside. We arrived and the techs were already waiting. 2 men in vests that said County Forensics and metal cases full of tools. Harris was there too, with his mustache and the face of someone who'd slept little. He shook my hand and asked me to open up. I took out my keys and opened the door. The smell hit me right away. Stale air, old gas, something not right. The techs went in first with meters in their hands. One of them, a tech with glasses, took readings and called out numbers to the other, who typed them into a tablet. Eli stayed with me at the entry. Harris asked us not to touch anything, just point out where things were. The techs headed straight to the laundry room. There was the water heater, that white tank that's given me hot water for years. One of them started taking pictures from every angle. The other opened his case and took out tools. They began taking parts off, checking connections, sticking in devices that beeped and flashed green numbers. "Mr. Davis," Harris called. "Come over here." I walked over. "Did you install this heater?" I told him yes, about 15 years ago when the old one burned out. "Has anyone touched it besides your grandson?" I told him about Richard, the Saturday he came to check it. The note on the fridge. Harris wrote it all down in his notebook. The tech with glasses called me over. "Look here, Mr. Davis," he said. "Here's the vent valve. See, it was shut. Someone closed it with a wrench. And look here, the ventilation duct." He showed me the pipe that runs from the heater through the wall to the outside. It was clean now, but you could see residue of sealant around the edges. "Someone plugged it," he said, "and then cleaned it recently. But the marks are there. Silicone leaves a trace." He showed me the carbon monoxide detector, the one Eli installed. He tested it with a device. The detector started screaming. "Levels in the house are still high," he said. "If you'd kept sleeping here, in 2 weeks your body wouldn't have held up, especially at your age." I said nothing, just nodded. My throat felt tight. Then they checked the timer. That little gadget Eli had seen taped to the pipe. It wasn't there anymore, but the tech found adhesive marks on the metal. "Someone removed it," he said, "but you can see it was stuck here." He took samples of the residue with tweezers, slipped them into clear plastic bags, labeled them. 2 hours passed while they checked everything. They photographed every corner of the laundry room, the kitchen, my bedroom. They measured gas levels in every room. The tech with glasses told me the highest concentration was in my bedroom, because it's the most closed off and right next to the heater room. He explained carbon monoxide has no smell. You don't notice it. You just feel tired, with a headache, and one day you don't wake up. He said I was lucky my grandson was a technician who knew how to read the signs. When they finished, Harris asked me to show him where I kept important documents. I took him to the kitchen drawer with the papers, bills, receipts, the deed to the house. Harris looked through everything. "Do you have a will, Mr. Davis?" I said yes. "I made one 3 years ago, when Rosa died. It's in a blue folder on the living room shelf." Harris went for it, opened it. "Read it. It says here the house goes to your 2 children, Richard and Julia," he said. I told him yes, that was fair. He nodded, kept writing. He asked if anyone else knew about the will. I said yes, my children knew. I told them when I made it, so there wouldn't be surprises later. Harris gave me that cop look that says he's put the pieces together. "Do you know how much the house is worth, Mr. Davis?" I said not exactly, but a neighbor sold his 2 years ago for nearly $200,000. Harris wrote that down too. Before we left, I walked through the house alone. The techs were done, packing up their gear. Eli was outside on the phone. Harris was in his car going through paperwork. I stood in the middle of the living room, looking at the walls I raised, the windows I installed, the wood floor I polished with my own hands. I remembered Rosa, when we picked the kitchen tiles, a Sunday at the market in Baton Rouge. She wanted the yellow and blue ones. I wanted the green ones. She won, like always. And she was right, like always. The kitchen turned out beautiful. I remembered when we finished the house after 2 years of work. Rosa cried that day. From happiness, she said, because we had our own place, a place nobody could take from us. And now it turns out they could, or tried to. This was made to protect us, not to trap us. Rosa told me once, when we were putting in the windows. I asked what she meant. She said a house isn't to hide from the world. It's to have a place to come back to. And she was right. This house was refuge, was home, was life. Until it wasn't. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't a sob. It was deeper, like something that had been holding on for days, snapped all at once. I sat on the couch, the one Rosa bought at a furniture store on Ferris Street, the one we paid off in installments for a year. I closed my eyes. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. I felt anger too. Not the shouted kind, the quiet kind that gets stuck in your chest. Eli came in. "Grandpa," he said, "you okay?" I told him yes. I was just looking at the house. He sat next to me. Didn't say anything. Just stayed there with me. We sat like that about 5 minutes, in silence. Harris came in after. "Mr. Davis," he said, "with what we found today, we have grounds to keep the investigation going. We're going to call your children in to give statements. And Richard's wife, Carla, too. You don't have to be present, but I do need you to sign some papers." I said yes. We walked out of the house. I looked back before getting into the truck. It looked the same as always. But it wasn't mine anymore, not in the same way. Now it was evidence. That night, at Eli's apartment, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Richard, Julia, Carla, messages and more messages. Where was I? Why wasn't I answering? They were worried. They needed to talk. Eli told me not to answer, to let them call, that everything would be recorded. 3 days later, Harris called me. He said he'd summoned Richard and Julia to make statements. They went. They gave their version. Richard denied everything. Said yes, he'd checked the heater, but only turned it on and off to see if it worked. Didn't touch any valves, didn't seal anything. Julia denied it too. Said she didn't even know where the heater was, that her brother handled that. Harris asked if I wanted the restraining order. This time I said yes. He explained it meant Richard and Julia couldn't come within 100 meters of me. Couldn't call me. Couldn't try to contact me. If they did, they'd have legal trouble. I signed the papers. 2 days later, a message came to Eli's phone. It was from Richard. It said, "Tell my dad we need to talk. Alone. At the neighborhood park tomorrow at 5. No lawyers, no police. Just us." Eli showed me the message. I told him I wasn't going. He said maybe I should, but carefully. He'd be close. He wouldn't leave me alone. I thought about it. In the end, I said yes, I'd go. I wanted to see their faces. I wanted to hear what they had to say. We got to the park at 5 sharp. It's a small park with a basketball court, a kid's playground, and a few benches under the trees. Richard and Julia were already there, sitting on a bench. Eli stayed in the truck, parked where he could see me, but at a distance. I walked up. Richard stood when he saw me. Julia did too. They both looked at me with faces I couldn't read. Were they worried? Afraid? Guilty? "Dad," Richard said. "What's going on? Why did you put a restraining order on us?" I sat on the bench across from them. "You know why," I said. Richard shook his head. "I don't know what you're talking about. I want to check the heater because Carla said it was a good idea. That's all. I didn't touch anything bad. I don't know what Eli told you, but he's making things up." Julia spoke then. Her voice was soft, like always. "Daddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We would never hurt you. You're our father." I asked him straight, "Do y'all need money?" Richard clenched his jaw. Julia looked down. "Everybody needs money, Dad," Richard said. "Life's expensive. But that doesn't mean we want you dead." "Then why did you seal the heater vent?" I asked. "Why close the valve? Why put a timer on it?" Richard stood up. "I didn't do that. And I'm not going to keep listening to these accusations. If you want to believe Eli over your own son, that's on you." Julia stayed seated. "Daddy," she said, "if you truly believe we did something to you, then talk to us. Not the police. We're your family." I told her I no longer knew what family was. Family doesn't poison you. Family doesn't plan to take your house while you're still alive. Julia started to cry. Not much, just a few tears she wiped away quick with her hand. Richard pointed a finger at me. "You've already lived your life, Dad. We're just trying to get ahead. And there you are, clinging to that house like it's the only thing that matters. Mom's gone. There's no point in you staying there." Those words hit me like stones. Richard realized what he'd said and tried to fix it. "I didn't mean it like that," he said. but it was too late. He'd said it. I stood. "If you want to talk," I said, "it'll be in front of my attorney. Not here. Not alone." "You have an attorney?" Richard asked. His face changed, went paler. I told him yes, and that she already had all the evidence. Richard and Julia looked at each other. Julia was still crying. Richard looked angry, but scared too. I turned and started walking toward the truck. Richard shouted after me, "Dad, this isn't going to stay like this." Julia told him to hush. I kept walking. Eli already had the truck running. I got in. We left. "How'd it go?" he asked me. I told him just as expected. Richard still denying everything. Julia crying. Neither of them going to admit a thing. But as we drove off, I saw in the side mirror that someone else was walking up to Richard and Julia. A woman, older, wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase. The three of them started talking. Eli saw her too. "That's my attorney," he said. "Ms. Camacho. I asked her to come in case things got ugly." "You didn't tell me you'd hired an attorney," I said. Eli gave a small smile. "It was a surprise, Grandpa." Attorney Camacho turned out to be a woman around 50, short hair, and a direct way of speaking I liked from the start. The next day we went to her office, a small place in a strip mall on the south side of Jackson. She greeted us with coffee and cookies. "Mr. Davis," she said, "your grandson brought me up to speed. I've already reviewed the photos, the notebook, the neighbor's statement, and yesterday I spoke briefly with your children at the park. It's clear to me they'll deny everything to the end." I asked what we could do. She said the first thing was to cross-check information. Bank statements, debts, transactions. "We need to see who owes what," she said. "Money always leaves a trail." She worked fast. In 3 days, she had a report. She called me back to her office, with Eli and Harris there as well. She spread papers on the table. "Look," she said. "Here's everything. Richard owes $30,000 on credit cards. He's got $15,000 with a private lender. Carla owes her agency $8,000 in clawback commissions. Together they owe over $50,000, and they're behind. The interest is drowning them." "And Julia?" I asked. Camacho pulled other papers. "Julia and her husband have $40,000 in medical debt for his mother. Cancer treatments, medications, appointments. Insurance didn't cover it all. They're paying in installments, but falling further behind each month." Harris was taking notes. "Do we have an appraisal on the house?" Camacho asked. "Yes," Harris said. "The house is worth about $220,000. If it were sold and split between Richard and Julia, each would get $110,000, enough to pay all their debts and still have money left over." There it was. The motive. Not hatred, not pure evil. Desperation, debt, pressure. But that didn't make it any less serious. They were still my children, and they tried to kill me. Camacho continued. "There's more," she said. "I found something on Julia's computer. Well, the DA's office did, with a warrant." She showed me printouts of emails and searches. They were Julia's internet queries. How to detect carbon monoxide poisoning. Symptoms of death by gas in elderly. Investigating natural deaths in seniors. I felt cold. Julia had been researching, planning. This wasn't improvised. It was calculated. Harris spoke. "With this, we can argue there was premeditation. Not negligence. Not an accident. Attempted homicide." I asked what that meant. He said it meant prison. Years of it for all three, if everything was proven. Richard for executing it. Julia for planning. Carla as an accomplice if she knew. And if she didn't know. I asked. Camacho said they'd have to investigate that. I stayed quiet for a while. They all looked at me, waiting. Finally I asked, "How long can this take?" Harris said it depends. If they cooperate, accept responsibility, make agreements, it can be quicker. But if they deny everything and we go to a full trial, it could take years. I didn't want years. I wanted this over. Camacho laid a hand on my arm. "Mr. Davis, I know this is hard, but you have to think of yourself. They tried to kill you. You can't let that pass without consequences." She was right. I knew it. but it hurt just the same. That night Eli and I ate quesadillas he made. We didn't talk much. I kept thinking about Julia's emails, those searches. My daughter, the one who hugged me when I got home from work as a little girl. The one who said when she grew up she'd take care of me. And now she'd been looking up how to kill me without anyone noticing. The next day Eli's phone rang. It was Carla. He didn't pick up, let it go to voicemail. 2 hours later Carla texted, "I need to talk to Mr. Davis. It's urgent. Just 5 minutes. Please." Eli showed me the message. I said I didn't want to talk to her. But Camacho had told me it's useful to hear what people want to say. Sometimes they incriminate themselves. So I told Eli to reply. We'd meet in a public place, a coffee shop in a shopping center. Eli would be with me. We met the next day. Carla came alone. She looked tired, hair pulled back, no makeup, simple clothes. She sat across from me. Eli sat at my side. "Mr. Davis," she said, "I need to talk to you. About the house." I told her there was nothing to discuss about the house. It was mine, and I wasn't selling. Carla sighed. "Mr. Davis, be realistic. You can't live there forever. It's a big place. It needs maintenance. You're alone. Wouldn't it be better to sell, take the money, buy something smaller, easier to care for? And what's left, split it. Everybody wins." I asked if Richard knew she was here. She said no. This was her idea. She wanted to help. I told her I didn't need her help. What I needed was to be left in peace. Carla leaned forward. "Mr. Davis, Richard is desperate. He's got debts. People pressing him. If he doesn't pay soon, they're going to do ugly things. And that's my problem, how?" I asked. Carla fell silent, then said, "You're his father." I told her fathers don't try to kill their children for money. But apparently the other way around is possible. Carla went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about. Richard only checked the heater. That's all." I told her I didn't believe her, that we had proof, that it would all come out at trial. Carla stood. "Mr. Davis, you're making a mistake. If you keep this up, you're going to destroy your family." "My family's already destroyed," I said. "You all destroyed it." Carla grabbed her bag and left. She didn't say goodbye. Eli and I stayed seated, watching her go. A week later, Harris called again. Richard had gone back in to give another statement, this time with a lawyer, and he tripped over himself. First he said he only turned the heater on and off. Then he said he checked the connections. Then he said he didn't touch anything. His lawyer told him to stop talking, but it was too late. They called Carla in too. She said she didn't know anything, that Richard never told her he'd gone to check the heater. But Harris showed her messages between her and Richard from the day he was at my house. Texts where she asked if he'd finished, if everything was set. Carla got nervous, said she meant something else, one of Richard's jobs. She wasn't convincing. Julia was the last to testify. She arrived with her daughter Pauline. The girl waited outside while Julia went in. Harris told me Julia cried through the whole statement. Said yes, she'd searched for that information online, but only out of curiosity. She'd read about a man who died like that and got scared it could happen to me. Said that's why she'd come to visit, to make sure everything was okay. Harris asked why she never told me if she was so worried. Julia didn't know what to say. Afterward, Julia asked Harris if she could talk to me. He told her no. There was a restraining order. She asked if she could at least send me a letter. Harris said yes. The letter came 2 days later. Eli handed it to me. A white envelope with my name handwritten, Julia's handwriting. I opened it. It said, "Dad, I know you won't believe me, but I didn't want anything to happen to you. I let Richard carry me along. He said it was the only way out of the debts, that you were old, that you wouldn't suffer. I didn't want to, but I didn't stop him either, and that makes me just as guilty. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm only asking you to let Pauline see you. She misses you, and none of this is her fault." I closed the letter. I didn't cry, but I felt something. I don't know if it was pity or anger or both. Eli asked what it said. I told him. He asked if I wanted to see Pauline. I said I didn't know. But 2 days later Pauline sent a message straight to me. Left it in my voicemail because I wasn't picking up. "Grandpa, it's Pau. I know you're mad at my mom and my uncle. I don't really know what happened, but I want to see you. Can I come see you? Please. I listened to it 3 times. Pauline's voice. The little girl who asked me to make her wooden toy horses, who fell asleep on my lap watching TV. That girl now 14, and not at fault for any of this. I told Eli I did want to see her, but not at Julia's house and not at mine. Somewhere neutral. Eli suggested his workshop, where he fixed things sometimes. It was quiet there. We called Harris to ask if there was any legal problem. He said no. Pauline wasn't included in the restraining order. I could see her if I wanted. I texted Pauline, told her we'd meet Saturday at Eli's workshop, that she could come alone or with whomever she wanted, but I'd be there with Eli. Saturday came. Pauline arrived alone. Well, her mom dropped her at the door, but didn't get out of the car. Pauline walked in. She saw me and ran to hug me. I hugged her back, and I did cry then. I couldn't help it. Pauline kept crying for a while. So did I. Eli gave us privacy and went to the back of the shop. We sat on some old chairs. Pauline's eyes were red. She looked older than the last time I'd seen her, but she was still my granddaughter. Grandpa, she said, I don't know what happened. Mom won't tell me anything. She just cries. And my dad's mad all the time. And Uncle Richard doesn't even come around anymore. What did they do? I didn't know what to tell her. I couldn't unload the whole truth. It was too heavy, but I couldn't lie either. Pauline's smart. She sees things. Your mom and your uncle did something bad. I said, something that could have hurt me, and now they're in legal trouble. Did they try to hurt you? She asked. Her voice got small. I told her yes. Without going into details, yes, they tried to hurt me. Pauline went quiet, then said, my mom isn't a bad person. I know she isn't. I told her I knew that too. That sometimes good people do bad things when they're desperate. That I wasn't excusing it, but I understood not everything is black and white. Are you going to forgive her? She asked. I told her I didn't know. It still hurt too much. I needed time. Pauline nodded. She asked if she could keep seeing me. I told her yes. She could come whenever she wanted. This was between her mom and me, not between her and me. Pauline hugged me again before leaving. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too. When she left, Eli came back. How was it, he asked. Good, I said. Pauline's a good girl. Eli said maybe, in time, that girl could help her mother become a better person. I hoped he was right. That same week, something strange happened. A woman called my cell. She introduced herself as Sarah, a ceramic artist with a studio in Fondren, and said she'd heard of me from a mutual acquaintance. She needed wooden doors for her new studio. Handmade, good workmanship. Asked if I could make them. I asked who gave her my number. She said Eli. He told her I was a carpenter who did good work. I told her I hadn't worked in a long time. Didn't know if I still could. Sarah said there was no rush. We could meet, see the space, talk through the project. I agreed. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to do something with my hands. Maybe because weeks shut in Eli's apartment were driving me crazy. Sarah turned out to be a woman in her 50s, with long gray hair and strong hands from working clay. Her studio was in an old house she was renovating. She showed me where she wanted the doors. 3 of them, 1 for the entrance, 2 for bedrooms she was turning into workrooms. She wanted light-colored wood, no dark varnish, with forged iron hinges. I took measurements, told her I could do it, but it would take time. I don't work as fast as I used to. Sarah smiled. No rush, she said. Take your time. Do it right. I started working in Eli's workshop. He got the wood, good pine, not free. He lent me his tools. I started slow. My hands hurt at first, from so long without working. But little by little they found their rhythm. Sanding, cutting, joining. It was like breathing again after being underwater too long. Sarah stopped by sometimes to see the progress. We talked. She told me about her clay work, how she started, her kids who were grown now. I told her about Rosa, about the house we built together. I didn't tell her about my children. Not yet, but I think she knew I was carrying something heavy. One afternoon, Eli came to the shop with an idea. Grandpa, he said, I've been thinking. Your kitchen, the one you and Grandma built, The cabinets, the pantry, the table. All of it is handmade. What's going to happen to it when the house gets sold? I hadn't thought of that. I told him I didn't know. We should take it out, Eli said. All of it. Store it. Or install it somewhere else. We can't let it get lost. He was right. I built that kitchen. Rosa chose every detail. It was our kitchen. I couldn't leave it there for strangers to tear out or paint over. I asked if it could be done. He said yes. He knew people who could help. We could rent a small storage unit and keep everything there while we decided what to do. We talked to Harris, asked if there was any legal issue with removing things from the house. Harris said no. The house was still mine. The forensic work was finished. I could take whatever I wanted. So one Saturday, Eli, Sarah, who offered to help, and I went to the house. Sarah brought a friend with a pickup. Eli brought tools. We went in. The place smelled closed up, abandoned. I hadn't been there in nearly a month. It looked the same but different, like it wasn't mine anymore. We started with the kitchen. We took the cabinets down carefully. Every piece had a story. The upper left cabinet I made when Richard was 5. The lower right one I finished the day Julia was born. The big pantry I made for Rosa's birthday. Everything carried a timestamp. Life lived. It took us all day. By the end, we had the whole kitchen taken down, wrapped in blankets, tied with ropes in the truck bed. We hauled it to a storage unit Eli rented. There it sat, waiting. While we were working, Sarah asked why I was taking the kitchen out. I told her a little. Not everything, but enough. That the house would be sold soon, and I didn't want to lose what Rosa and I had made. Sarah nodded. I understand, she said. The things we make with our hands carry pieces of us. You can't just throw them away. 2 weeks later, Detective Harris called me. Mr. Davis, he said, we have a date for the preliminary hearing. It'll be in a month. That's when the judge will decide if there's enough evidence to move forward with the criminal case. I asked if I had to go. He said yes. It was important for me to be there. Attorney Camacho would speak for me, but the judge would want to see me. That month went by slow. I kept working on Sarah's doors. I had 2 finished already. The work helped me stop thinking. Pauline came to see me every week. Sometimes she helped sand or rub the wood with oil. We didn't talk much about her mother, but I knew Julia was asking her about me. One afternoon, Pauline told me she talked to her mom. She said she told her that what she did was wrong, that no debt or problem could ever justify it. Pauline said her mom cried, told her she was sorry to her too, that Julia knew she'd lost my trust, and that it might take years, maybe forever, to earn it back. I asked how she was handling it all. Pauline shrugged. Sad, she said. Angry too. But she's still my mom. I can't stop loving her, even if she did something bad. I understood what she meant, because I felt the same. They were still my children. I couldn't stop loving them, but I also couldn't just let go of what they'd done. The day of the hearing came. Eli drove me there. Camacho was already waiting. She told me to stay calm, to let her do the talking, and to only answer if the judge asked me directly. The courtroom was small, a big desk for the judge, a few tables for the lawyers, and chairs for us. Richard arrived with his attorney. Carla came with another. Julia arrived alone, without counsel. She looked small, frightened. The judge walked in, an older man with glasses and a serious face. We all stood. He sat. Then we sat. The hearing began. Camacho spoke first. She laid everything out, the photos of the heater, the sealed vents, the timer, the notebook with my symptoms, Miss Louise's testimony, the financial records showing the debts, the emails of Julia researching carbon monoxide poisoning. She spoke clearly, no yelling, no theatrics, just facts, one by one, fitting together like a puzzle before the judge. Then Richard's lawyer spoke, said it was all circumstantial. No direct proof that Richard had closed any valves or installed the timer. The photos showed tampering, yes, but not who tampered with it. Could have been anyone, he said. Camacho replied. She showed the note on the fridge in my handwriting, saying Richard had come to check the heater. She showed Miss Louise's statement that she'd seen Richard's truck parked outside my house at night. She showed the text messages between Richard and Carla from that same day, where Carla asked if he was done yet. Carla's lawyer spoke next. Said she didn't know anything. Said those messages referred to another one of Richard's jobs. The judge asked, "What job?" The lawyer had no answer. Then it was Julia's turn. Since she had no lawyer, the judge asked her directly, "Did you search online for information about carbon monoxide poisoning?" Julia said yes. Her voice shook. "Why?" the judge asked. "Because Richard told me he was going to do it," she said. "He said it was the only way out of the debts. I tried to talk him out of it, but in the end, I didn't do anything to stop him." Richard's lawyer jumped up, shouting that Julia was lying, trying to blame him to save herself. The judge told him to sit down. Then the judge looked at me. "Mr. Davis," he said, "do you have anything to say?" I stood. I didn't know what to say. Camacho had told me I didn't have to speak, but I felt I had to. "I built that house with my own hands," I said. "With my wife, Rosa. It took us years. Every brick, every door, every window. It was our refuge, the place where we raised our children, and they turned it into a trap to kill me. Not out of hate, out of money. That's what hurts the most. That money mattered more than everything we gave them." I sat down. The judge wrote something. Then he said he'd review all the evidence and make a decision in the coming days. We left the courtroom. Richard looked at me as he passed, anger in his eyes, but fear too. Carla was crying. Julia stayed behind. When everyone had gone, she came up to me. Eli stepped between us. "Dad," she said, "I know it doesn't matter now, but I'm sorry. I really am." I didn't say a word, just looked at her, then turned away and walked out. Outside, in the parking lot, Pauline was waiting. She'd skipped school to be there. She ran to hug her mother. Julia hugged her back and broke down crying. I watched from a distance. Eli put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's go, Grandpa," he said. A week later, the judge gave his ruling. There was enough evidence to move forward. He imposed strict precautionary measures. Richard couldn't leave the state and had to check in weekly with the DA's office. Carla too. Julia as well, though hers were lighter since she had cooperated. Camacho explained that now came the long part. Months could pass before the formal trial, unless they made a deal, if they accepted guilt in exchange for reduced sentences. I asked which was better. She said it depended on what I wanted. If I wanted it over fast, a deal was best. If I wanted a full trial, that could take years. I told her I wanted it to end. I didn't want years of this. Camacho said she'd talk to their lawyers to see if they'd negotiate. 2 weeks later, the offer came. Richard was willing to plead guilty to attempted homicide in exchange for an 8-year sentence, 5 if he behaved. Carla accepted complicity, asking for 3 years. Julia admitted complicity too, asking for 2 years on probation, doing community service, and paying restitution. Camacho asked what I thought. I told her it seemed too little. They tried to kill me. She said in cases like this, sentences were never what one expects. That 8 years for Richard was significant, given how early release laws worked. What mattered was that they admitted what they did, that it stayed on record. I thought it over for days. Talked with Eli. He said whatever I decided was fine. I talked with Pauline. She asked me not to be too harsh on her mom. Not because she excused it, but because she still needed her. In the end, I agreed. Signed the papers. The final hearing was scheduled. That day, the courtroom was full. Richard, Carla, and Julia stood before the judge. He asked each one if they accepted the charges. Richard said yes, voice rough. Carla said yes. Julia cried as she said yes. The judge read the sentences. 8 years for Richard for attempted homicide with premeditation and malice. 3 years for Carla for complicity. 2 years for Julia on conditional freedom with community service and restitution. Then the judge asked if I wanted to say anything. I stood. "I built that house as a refuge," I said, "to protect my family, not to harm it. Rosa and I spent years building it, and you turned it into a weapon. I won't tell you I forgive you, because I don't know if I can. But I also won't let this destroy me. I'll keep living. I'll keep working. And I'll remember that house belonged to Rosa and me, not to you." I sat down. The judge closed the hearing. Richard was taken away in handcuffs. Carla left crying with her lawyer. Julia stayed, staring at me. I looked back, then turned and walked out. Outside, Miss Louise was waiting. She'd come without telling me. She had a thermos in her hands. "For your comfort, Mr. Davis," she said, handing it to me. It was hot chocolate. I thanked her. The next months were strange. Slowly, I started building a new life. I decided to sell the house. I couldn't live there again. Every corner would remind me of what happened. I hired a real estate agent, not Carla, of course, and put up for sale. It sold quickly, for about $210,000. With that money, I paid the legal costs, gave Eli a share for everything he'd done, and used the rest to buy a small apartment in Jackson, near Sarah's workshop. Before the new owners moved in, Eli and I went back one last time. I walked through every room. Empty now, no furniture, no life. But still, the doors I made, the windows I installed, the floors I polished were there. It was still the house Rosa and I built, just not ours anymore. I stood in the middle of the living room and remembered the day we finished construction. Rosa crying with joy, me carrying her across the threshold, the kids running through the empty rooms. All of it happened here. And so did everything else. Both truths could live in the same place. Eli pulled me from my thoughts. "Grandpa," he said, "it's time." We left. I locked the door one last time, handed the key to the agent, and we drove off. The new apartment's small but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a living room with a dining space, a kitchen. And in that kitchen, Eli installed the cabinets we took from the old house. The kitchen Rosa and I built together. It fit perfectly, like it had always belonged there. I finished Sarah's 3 doors. They turned out well. She was happy, paid me and asked if I could make her more things, a table, some shelves. I said yes. The work did me good. Sarah and I became friends. Nothing romantic, just 2 older folks who understood each other. She taught me basic pottery. I taught her how to sand wood. We spent afternoons in her studio or Eli's workshop, working, talking, drinking coffee. Eli started his own business, licensed gas installations, all official this time. He's doing well. Still comes to see me every week. Sometimes we eat together. Sometimes we just sit watching TV in silence. Pauline visits too, every couple of weeks. She's 15 now, in high school, wants to study design. I'm teaching her carpentry. She says she likes working with her hands, like her great-grandma and me. I haven't heard much from Julia. I know she's serving her probation, working at a community kitchen, going to therapy. Pauline says her mom is changing, trying to be better. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it matters. 2 months ago, Julia sent me a letter. I haven't opened it. It's in my nightstand drawer. Sometimes I look at it. Sometimes I think about opening it. But not yet. Maybe one day. As for Richard, I don't want to know. He's in prison. Let him serve his time. Eli told me Carla divorced him, moved out of state. Good for her. Last week, Pauline asked if I'd ever forgive her mother. I told her I didn't know. Forgiveness isn't something you just decide. It's something that happens, or it doesn't. Maybe with time. But I couldn't promise. Pauline said she understood. That her mom did too. That her mom didn't expect me to do anything. Just wanted me to know she was truly sorry. I told her I knew. And that was enough for now. Today's Friday. I just finished a table I'm making for Sarah, oak, with turned legs. It's going to be beautiful. Tomorrow Eli's coming for lunch. Pauline too. I'm making gumbo, the kind Rosa loved. I'm standing in my new kitchen, the one with the old cabinets. I run my hand over the wood. It's smooth from years of use. Still strong. Still holding up. I think about everything that happened. How my own children tried to kill me. How Eli saved me. How the law did its job. It wasn't revenge with shouting or fists. It was revenge through truth, through paper, through proof, through justice that came to light. And it hurt more than any punch. But I also think about the other side. Pauline learning to sand wood. Eli running his business. Sarah teaching me pottery. This kitchen that traveled from one house to another and survived. How I survived. The revenge was truth revealed and justice done. The redemption was that some chose to repair. Julia's trying, according to Pauline. Richard, I don't know. Maybe never. And that's fine. Not everyone gets saved. The rest, like I told Pauline, gets smoothed out little by little. Like wood. With patience. With time. No rush. I pour myself a coffee. Sit at the kitchen table. The wood shines in the late afternoon light. Outside, I can hear children playing in the street. Life goes on. And so do I. Not with bitterness, but not with forgetfulness either. I go on with the truth of what happened, with the scars it left, but also with hands ready to keep building. Because that's what I know how to do. Build. Rosa taught me that you can always build something new, even after the old is broken. Tomorrow I'll open Julia's letter. I think it's time. I don't know what I'll do after I read it. I don't know if I'll reply, but it's time to at least read it. I finish my coffee. Wash the cup. Put it away in the cabinet I built 40 years ago. Close the door. The wood makes that soft sound I know so well. I go to the living room. Turn on the TV. A cooking show's on. I watch without paying much attention. I think about Rosa, what she'd say about all this. Probably that I did the right thing. That truth is always better than silence, even when it hurts. That family isn't just blood, it's respect. And without respect, there's no family. She'd also tell me not to grow bitter, to keep moving. Life's too short to carry hatred around. And she'd be right. She always was. So that's what I do. I keep moving. One day at a time. One cut of wood at a time. One cup of coffee at a time. The story didn't end like in the soap operas. No big hugs. No instant forgiveness. It ended the way real life does, with justice served, consequences faced. Some people trying to mend, others not. With one door closed and another barely open. With work in my hands and food on my table. With a granddaughter who visits me, and a grandson who saved my life. It ended with truth. And with peace. Not perfect peace, but real peace. The kind you build, like a house. Brick by brick. Day by day. And for now, that's enough.